welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv. My name is Margaret. I'll be here with, cameras, hello.
Oh,
I
we're
will
good to
be
go.
here, yes, we are good to go, J. Ray. I'll be here with the fantastic Jonathan Ray to discuss translations in FileMaker. He's got a really cool little sample file that allows you to translate, I think using Google, maybe. We'll discuss that later on. It'll be really awesome. Real quick reminder, we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on YouTube, we stream on Discord, and we stream on Twitch. I follow all of those conversations. Please ask questions, please interact with us. We're here to improve the community, dispense information among the community, interact with the community. FileMaker community is great, and we're here to hopefully help make it better sometimes. Real quick, let's cover our schedule, the lovely schedule. So we have translations with J. Ray today. Tomorrow and Thursday are going to be the Unicode with Nick Hunter, which should be really interesting. Friday is going to be FileMaker containers for beginners. If you ever like, oh, it's been a while since I've done container stuff, or if you're a beginner, that'll be good. Monday and Tuesday got changed. They do exist. One is going to be, Monday itself is going to be with Calvin, and Calvin will pop up discussing filtering without doing finds without using find mode. So we'll be filtering sorts. And then Wednesday and Thursday are, of course, going to be Unicode, the last day of Unicode with Nick Hunter, and then code and character functions with Nick Hunter again on Thursday. So that'll be really fun. We got quite the schedule. A lot of beginner, intermediate, and advanced stuff should be really interesting. Looking forward to seeing all you there. Real quick, if you'd like to support the channel, I highly recommend that you get our FileMaker bundle. Learning FileMaker subscription. It is 100 plus hours of high energy video training. The high energy is not a joke. We have Rick, I believe that you're in there, J. Ray, but we have got Rick and Nick and Jacob, Taylor, and Calvin, many of our fantastic senior engineers discussing all these fantastic subjects in FileMaker. We covered cloud, server, WebDirect, Go, the actual FileMaker Pro platform itself. We discuss it pretty thoroughly. So if you have like questions, you're like, oh, I need to know this and this and this and this. Or if you just like to support the fact that we do this 5 days a week, we would greatly appreciate it. People who have bought it, thank you very much. We do indeed appreciate it. Helps keeps everything going. Thank you very much again, everyone, for coming. We appreciate it. So, Jonathan, what are we doing today, and where do you want to start?
All right, very cool. Well, I'm going to start by sharing my screen with everybody, and we're going to take a look at the demo that you can download in the show notes, and you can play with it and figure out the best integration for you. Basically, today we're going to be talking about Google Translate, not so much in specific use cases. Okay, so I want to kind of frame the conversation a bit that I'm not going to be giving you ideas about how to integrate it with your system, more just here's how you do it. Okay, so I mean, maybe you want to translate say note records in FileMaker, and sometimes you have some random note record that's in German or something, and you want to provide a rough translation. And there's a million different use cases for this, so we're not going to really brainstorm a whole lot about how exactly you're going to put it into your system, just more of here's how to get it done, and then you can use your imagination from there. Most people are already familiar with how Google Translate works. If you're not, and you don't know about this service yet, let me just give you a very quick demo. So you just go to translate.google.com, right? Google Translate. And so let's say, for instance, I want to translate into Spanish, and I go, hello world, and it provides me this rough translation, right? Hola mundo. Okay, so that's the basic idea. You can, though, translate up to 5,000 words in this, or 5,000 characters in this basic web interface here, okay? But there are more sophisticated things you can do other than just going to Google's website and typing in text, right? So we'll get into a couple of things that that you can do to automate things, one of them being from FileMaker itself. All right, so let me hide this real quick. And then this is the demo that you'll be provided in the show notes. And you can see here we have a list of languages that you can choose from, right? So you choose your original language, right? And then you choose the the language that you want to be translated into, right? So let's do this. I'm just going to hit translate. Okay, translate. I'll show you why that happened in a second. Okay, so we get the Spanish translation over here. And then if we want to do another one, let's say it's not in the language that you know, but it's in some other language. Let's say it's Latin here. This is our common Lorem Ipsum. If you've ever seen that, that's the dummy text that you see on websites in some places where it's just filler text. So if you ever want to know what that actually means, you can put it over here. And there it is. Okay. So, and there's the English translation. But you can flip back and forth to whatever you want. All right. That's the basic idea of what we're going for. And then there's the little copy button that actually copies the text to your clipboard. Okay. So let's dive in and see exactly how this works and explain the ins and outs to you. Okay. So the languages drop down. You can see the acronym is EN for English or ES for Spanish. This is Google's acronyms, okay? So I didn't make this up. This is the thing that you have to provide in your actual code. So you could change how this actually looks, but this is just a rough demo for you. So, okay. Let me explain the basic differences in methods here. So one way of getting the translation to work in FileMaker would be just to do what's called an insert from URL script step that tries to like break down this URL here, this string. So you would have like a calculation that would start with this, and then you would insert the little acronym, and then, here's the acronym for English, and it says I want to translate this word here, and then the equal sign translate. And sometimes for very basic translation, that's like 2 words, you can retrieve the proper translation without any API keys or crazy trickery or anything else. You can just do this very simply. The problem comes in when you start having multiple sentences and periods and different characters like that. When you try to retrieve the text from insert from URL, you'll find out very quickly it's difficult to do, just trying to do it that way. Okay, so the way that you would do, like way back when you were doing like MapQuest or Google Maps, you could do something like this, where you could put in this string and fill it in with the actual text that you wanted to. But Google Translate is more difficult to manage in that way. That's why we are not using a simple insert from URL script step. Sometimes it would work, but if you go for more than like a sentence, it'll break down pretty badly. So you'll see examples out there that will try to do an insert from URL in FileMaker and just try to get whatever is in this this returned result. It just doesn't work quite right. All right. So that's option 1, and we decided not to do that. The second option here is Google Translate's own API. And you can see there's all sorts of detailed documentation, and you can do things like the auto detect. So if you don't even know what the language is you're trying to translate, you just see some sort of garbled text that looks very foreign to you. You could use their API using their auto detect and try to detect what the language is, then translate it into whatever language that you want. So it has a lot of advanced stuff you do. Okay, and if you're familiar at all with working with APIs, you're familiar with some of the stuff that you're just looking at here, right? You're doing some sort of insert from URL with curl and with post and all this stuff. The trick though here is if you want to use Google's API, all right, and be able to do some more advanced stuff, you have to register with them, all right, and then they give you your own access token, and then you put in a credit card number, and then they bill you if you go over a certain threshold. So you have to figure out if you're under that threshold, and it gets pretty complicated real quick if you just want a very simple, here's this text, I want it translated, here's the language that it's in, here's the language that I want. So if you wanted to go down this road, I did build a demo that uses the actual Google API with the authentication token and everything else. But that is not the demo that I have for you. I figured out a way that to make it just easier than doing all this. It is literally free. You'll never get charged for it. Okay? So here it is. If you go to W3 Schools, this tells you a little bit how to do certain HTML and certain web programming. And a lot of people that start out with web work go to something like W3 Schools, and they walk you through, okay, here's how you do your first web page. And you click this little button, and you can try it yourself. Okay, so one of the little tutorials that they have is using Google Translate, but not so much using their API. Okay, Google Translate also has this little element right here that you may have seen before, and it says select language. And when you select the language, say, I wanted to translate into Danish, then right when I select it, it translates everything on my site into whatever language I chose. Okay, so let's say Dutch, right? And that is not requiring any sort of API key at all. All right, so you see in the code here, there is no authorization token and everything else. It's just this element that translates anything on my page into whatever language that you choose. So I worked this method into FileMaker, and that's the one that I'm using. And there's one little setback to it that I'll show you. But other than that, it seems to work well. Okay, so this is what you'll want to play with to get used to it and understand what exactly I'm doing. That's that W3 Schools. Let me hide this, and then jump into the actual code here. And should I stop, Margaret, and press pause, see if anyone has any questions so far?
I was just about to ask if anyone had any questions. Does anyone have any questions? I haven't really seen any pop up. Everyone's I can speak English. Following along, I presume. There's definitely like a good chunk of people here, so I assume they're all listening. So.
Okay, sounds good. So let me pull up the translation code here. So there's a couple layouts. One is this translation layout, right? Second is this translation code thing that I'm showing you here. And then another one is the actual languages. Okay, so if you're wondering where that list of languages come from, this is all of them with their little acronyms. Okay? And so in the drop downs, a value list is tied to that big long list. That's where all that stuff is coming from. And then the last one is the actual HTML code. Okay? And if you notice, if I bring this back up, it looks very, very similar, okay, to the base code from this W3 Schools tutorial. I've added a couple things just so you can follow along. It's almost identical, but I have bolted it into FileMaker and tried to show you how to do that. All right. So here's the code. I'll go back to translation. So let me do one thing first. Okay, so here is our basic layout, all right? Because we are using a web viewer over here, this is a web viewer that I'll show you in a second. The whole idea, the whole method that we're using, okay, is we're going to say whatever text we have on the left, this corresponds to this language. And we want to get a result on the right that corresponds to this language. And you'll notice that there is no web viewer visible on the screen. But what we have, if I drop into layout mode and go over to the right, we have a little hidden web viewer, okay? It has to be on the layout, but it doesn't have to be visible, all right? So if I don't hide this, all right, and I go into browse mode and hit translate, you can see this is doing exactly what this tutorial is doing over here. It's the exact same thing, okay? So what I'm doing in FileMaker is I'm saying whatever text I enter over here, I'm going to, when I click this button, send it to the web viewer, and then up here, I'm going to specify whatever language that I chose, and then when it returns the result, it's going to drop it into this field. That's the idea. So again, we're not using any API keys or anything else. All we're doing is pushing this text over here, specifying the language, waiting for a half a second, and sometimes you may need to wait a little bit longer, okay? And that's what I'll get to in a second. But if I click like Swahili, okay, it translates it into whatever language I'm specifying, all right? So that's the idea. You don't have to have the web viewer visible, but it does need to be on the layout in order for this to work. Okay, so let me drop back in to the actual code here, and let's go through it. So first of all, in layout mode, you see this web viewer here. This web viewer is displaying a field, okay, called HTML_calc. And whenever you have a web viewer that you want to display FileMaker data in at all, this little thing is very important. You need to specify data : text / HTML, comma, and. And so if you're wondering if you just put like a field in there and it's showing up blank, that's the reason you need to put this in there, okay? The other thing is you have to have allow JavaScript to perform FileMaker scripts checked. That's a big deal too, all right? So this is pulling up a FileMaker field, and let's go see what that field is. Also in layout mode, you can see this is an HTML field. It's called HTML. Okay, so this field has a couple things. It has a couple placeholders. One is text. One is translated language. Another is, where is it? Original language. So this is how we are taking our FileMaker data, okay? We have to somehow put in our web viewer the actual text we're translating, the language that we're translating from, the language that we're translating to. So in our field here, this is just a text field. I mean, I can write whatever I want here, okay? In our text field, we're putting a couple placeholders, okay, here, here, and here. And then we have a calculation field that is finding those placeholders and then replacing them with our actual FileMaker data. So in the calc field, this placeholder text is actually going to read like this. And let me show you what I mean. If I come here to data viewer, let's see, HTML calc, all right? And let me see right here. Whereas before, you see this text here, okay, is placeholder, like ... text ... or ****. It can be whatever you want it to be. This isn't like some special code you'd never heard of. This is just my naming convention. Okay, you can put whatever it is. It just needs to be something that isn't going to occur elsewhere in your code. Okay, so it has to be at least somewhat distinct. And then this calculation field is replacing that placeholder with the text that I chose. And you can see here's another place that it replaces it. ES is replaced from this, the translated language. All right? And so this is the actual code, this final code here, that shows up in the web viewer. Everything here, this is all it takes to run our stuff in FileMaker. Okay? So in our database definitions here for our translation table, our HTML calc field, remember the field that is replacing some of the stuff in HTML, the placeholder text. If I click in here, here's how we actually do the replace. We use the substitute function. Okay, so substitute by itself, I just type it in here. This is what it looks like. And what some may not realize without going to the help documents is that you can replace multiple things, right? So it doesn't just have to be replacing one thing. You can replace multiple by putting bracket, semicolon, and then you do another bracket, right? As many brackets as you want. So you're saying basically, whatever is in this text, search for this string and replace it with this one. Search for this string, replace it with this one, and you could do 1,000 of those if you wanted to. But in our case, we're just replacing 3. We're saying in this HTML field, look for this string right here, this specific identifier, and then replace it with the text that we want translated. And for this identifier, replace it with the language that we chose, which is, in our case, ES. And then the other language is going to be, I'm sorry, this one would be EN, and then this one would be ES. That's Google's acronym, okay? So that's how we get the actual substitution or replacing of the placeholder text. Hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to cancel out of here. All right, so now that we understand how exactly the web viewer is getting the code, let's figure out how exactly the code works. All right, so first of all, we have, and let me pull up this W3 Schools thing. Let's go to Spanish. Great. So here's what they did on their tutorial. They have an H1 tag, which means that the text is going to be bigger and most likely bold. And then P stands for paragraph. All right. And so it says, hello, everybody. And another one that says, translate this page. Okay. No matter what is on this page, it's all going to be translated into the language that you choose. All right. And so that's what we did over in FileMaker. But we don't have all these parts. We don't have an H1, a paragraph, another paragraph, and another paragraph. All we did is we made it super basic. We just have one paragraph tag here, and that paragraph is going to read whatever it is that we put in our text. Okay? So this web page, its entirety, I mean, the entire thing on the web page is just whatever we put in our text and the Google selection element, which is right here. So this is the thing that Google provides you to have show up as the selectable dropdown. And that's it. So we have the thing that Google gives us, the dropdown that, hey, choose your language, and then the text that we provide, and then that's it. The rest of it is a script. All right. So when I say script, I'm sorry. So the div element up here is the selector, and then the script from Google is what makes that selector mean anything. All right. Everything else here, I mean, this may look very, very confusing, but I'm basically copy and pasting from a tutorial, right, up here, and I'm adding a couple things, and that's it. All right, so it's not like I had to write this from scratch. And what we're doing here, just to explain this, is first, this is a little bit of JavaScript, and what we're doing is a var, V-A-R, stands for variable. So we are defining a variable. Just like in FileMaker, when you have a script, you write a script and you say set variable, you're defining something you're going to use in the rest of the script. Same exact thing here. So we're defining this thing called language, and that language is going to be in HTML calc ES, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, ES for Spanish, okay? And then what it will do next, this is something from Google, okay, that translates whatever is on the page. And then down here is kind of the magic point for us in FileMaker, okay? We have a bit of code that says when everything is loaded, right, when the page finally loads, then what we want to do is we want to grab a specific part of this page. We want to grab, of course, this part. Whatever has been translated, that's what we want to grab, okay? And we tell it, we want to grab this part, my translation, and that works because we specified ID equals my translation, whatever is here, okay? And we get the inner text. So we get just that text there. And then once we've grabbed this, all right, then we perform a FileMaker script. So this is something cool that's been introduced lately into FileMaker, is you can tell FileMaker from your JavaScript, hey, I want you to perform a script in FileMaker, the script named such and such, and it's going to have the script parameter of such and such. So in this case, the text is whatever we've grabbed up here. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of what we're doing there. And in FileMaker, the actual script, where is it? Return translation. So it's as simple as this. The script that we called is called return translation. You can see this down here. Return translation. And we specify the variable, the script parameter text, which is this up here. The variable equals whatever was translated. All right. And so when the page has loaded, it's going to wait 700 milliseconds. And sometimes that's a little bit arbitrary, okay? So depending on your internet speed, you may need to put it at 1,000, okay? So that'd be 1 second. You saw in a couple of the test runs at the beginning of this show that when I pressed it the first time, it didn't work. And I pressed it the second time, it did. It's because the latency is a little bit different with this Slack call that I'm doing here, okay? So the internet speed was a little bit slower. So maybe just to be safe, you put it at 1 second. I had it at like 300 milliseconds before and it was working fine, but 1,000 may be fine. Okay, so it loads the page and then it waits 1 second, and then whatever has been returned in that second, then it will take that text and send that text to FileMaker via a script parameter. and the script looks like this. All it does is it says set field in the translated text, which is right here. That's that field, translated text. And then you set it with the script parameter, which is just a text string, and then it commits the record. It's as simple as that, right? So with that said, let's do something a little bit more complex like this one here. I'm going to remove the text. Remember, this is in Latin. I hit translate, and you saw that it waited a whole second that time. So it's a little bit of a delay, but we ensured that it had enough time to translate the page and bring it over. So that's kind of how that works. Let me stop there and take a breather. Margaret, do we have any questions at all?
No. Anyone have any questions, issues, concerns, like anything you want to bring up? Or is J. Ray explaining it so thoroughly that just kind of everyone's able to follow along?
Yeah, and it could be, you're giving me the benefit of the doubt. It could be that people are bored beyond tears, but at least I find this pretty cool.
I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
Neat little demo. Yeah. So anyways, to recap a little bit on this, the reason I did it this way is that you're avoiding having to sign up for a specific API key or anything else. And if all you're wanting is a very basic translation without the auto-detect language and everything else, it's just type in text, choose the language that's coming from, choose the language that's going to, and hit translate, then this is the demo for you. And it's fairly simple because you don't have to rewrite any code. You basically copy and paste this thing, and we're done. So that is kind of it. If we don't have any questions, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do for the rest of the time. So
no, you're good. I think this is fantastic. It was a really thorough explanation. Yeah, Lynn and Austin, very cool, excellent presentation to explain everything. Scott was like, "This is really good." Boxy Jacket, this is pretty cool. So I'm gonna give us like a couple minutes because also Twitch and YouTube are on delays. To ask questions if people have them, but otherwise, I think we might be good. J. Ray, thank you very much for this.
All right. Yeah,
what other websites can you do this with, actually, is a question.
What other websites can you do this with?
Yeah, could you do this with?
So let me be clear on this. So what you can do, what Google is allowing you to do with this little thing, by having this div element and this script here, okay, this stuff here, with that little bit of code, you can put that code on any website and it will translate anything that's on the page. That's its purpose. So you could have a page with, 1 million characters, and you put this bit of code there, and then this element shows up, and whatever you choose, it's going to translate everything else on your page into that language. So this goes beyond just FileMaker. This is a pretty cool little technique if you're into web development anyways.
Excellent. I hope that answers your question, Lynn.
Yeah, I may have misunderstood the actual question you were asking. That's what I understood it to mean.
Yeah, if that answers your question, Lynn, let me know. If you actually meant something slightly different, then please elaborate. They're typing.
Yep. She might be asking about, how exactly would you use this in FileMaker in the real world, and that's a different discussion too.
Mm-hmm. Michelle Gravel said that this has been very good. So from YouTube, so people have been listening. I think you just explained it very thoroughly, which is not a bad thing. It just means that people understood and followed along really well. Lynn. Okay, so Lynn has a clarification, not to translate other websites, but other websites that have tools like the translator or something else. So if you could could you grab another website and use this code to drag it into FileMaker, I guess is what they're asking.
Yeah, so this kind of gets your mind going about other things that you can do in the web viewer. And we have some other videos that we show about here's how you use JavaScript to do something that is very difficult to do in FileMaker. Sometimes people are doing things in the web viewer just to prove that they can do them, and FileMaker is actually a better tool natively than using a web viewer to do that. All right, but there are things like this that are it just makes sense to do it this way instead of, say, using an API in FileMaker to do so. But I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to check out some of our streaming archives in which we go through some JavaScript stuff and cool things that you can do in a FileMaker web viewer, things that are going to be helpful.
Okay, Lynn, I hope that properly answers it. Brunnerman is typing. I'll let him finish up. Much less complicated than API and free. Yes.
Okay.
Which is always good.
And so, I think there are some other translation APIs out there that are indeed like really actually free, but they're not Google Translate. And so Google Translate is one of the more beefy ones out there that's going to give you more language options and not just like, pick from one of these 5. So for what it's worth, other ones out there, they offer a free tier, just like Google does. But I mean, you're typing in a credit card number, and if you pass a certain threshold, then they start charging you. Google Translate also has more advanced stuff like translate this page or something, where you send it a page of text and they translate all of it for you. Or I don't know if they do like object recognition, where you send it a page of a PDF and they kind of figure out what's on the page and then translate it. If I'm not mistaken, they do that as well. So we definitely haven't exhausted everything Google Translate can do by just this little demo here. But again, if all you're needing to do is translating one text to another text, and you know which languages you're talking about, then this is probably the best choice.
Yeah. Lynn also comments that thank you for the detailed explanation of the HTML and showing how to pass the results back to FileMaker. He votes for more sessions like this. So.
All right, very cool.
In that case, I think we're good. I see Kyle Williams typing, Brenneman typing. I'll let them finish up real fast before rolling the music. Thank you again, Jay Ray. we saw Jay Ray post this file in Slack, and we're like, Richard's like, you have to have a live stream on this, and I'm glad we did. Yeah, Kyle's like glad to see a translation API demo here. It's not even an API, I don't think, Kyle. I have to rewatch this one from the beginning, and Brenneman's like, step by step is always good. Yes, so with that, thank you very much, Jonathan. I am going to roll the credits unless you got anything else you'd like to say.
That's it for me. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye. See you all tomorrow.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!